The hidden cost of being too available, Stoic lessons on boundaries and self-worth. We are constantly told that availability is a virtue, that being there for others at any moment makes us good people. But what if I told you that being too available might be slowly destroying your value and peace of mind? We live in a culture that celebrates instant responses and constant connectivity. Yet the ancient Stoics understood something we've forgotten. The true strength lies not in always being present, but in knowing when to step back. Could your constant availability be costing you more than you realize? Be prepared to discover the harsh truths about what happens when you're always within reach. Today, I'll reveal 7 damaging consequences of being too available and share 4 powerful Stoic strategies to reclaim your time, energy, and self-respect. Let's dive into number 1 without wasting another moment. People will stop valuing your time. The Stoics taught us that what comes easily is rarely appreciated. We must demonstrate through our actions that our time has worth, because when we treat it as abundant and freely given, others will treat it as worthless. Marcus Aurelius wrote that the value of a thing is determined by how much life we're willing to exchange for it. When you're always available, you're essentially saying your time has no value, that anyone can claim it at any moment without consequence or consideration. This creates a dangerous pattern in your relationships. Whether personal or professional, think about it. When someone knows you'll always answer their call, always respond to their message, always drop what you're doing to attend to their needs, they lose sight of the sacrifice you're making. Your availability becomes expected rather than appreciated. It's no longer a gift, but an obligation. The psychological principle at work here is simple. Scarcity creates value. Abundance breeds contempt. When you make yourself scarce, when your time becomes something that must be earned or scheduled, people begin to recognize its worth. They approach you with more consideration, prepare their questions more thoughtfully, and respect the moments you do share. Conversely, when you're perpetually available, you train people to be careless with your time. They'll interrupt you for trivial matters that they could easily handle themselves. They'll fail to plan ahead because they know you'll always be there to fix things at the last minute. Your constant presence paradoxically makes you invisible. People stop seeing the individual with needs, boundaries, and a life of their own. They see only a resource to be tapped whenever convenient. Number 2, your own goals will continuously be postponed. The Stoic philosophers, particularly Seneca, emphasized that we must guard our time as our most precious resource. Being too available means constantly prioritizing others' urgencies over your own important work. This pattern doesn't just delay your goals, it can destroy them entirely. Every interruption carries a cost that goes far beyond the minutes spent addressing someone else's need. Modern psychology confirms what the Stoics knew. Each time you switch tasks, you lose momentum and focus. Researchers call this attention residue, the mental remnants of the previous task that linger even after you've moved on. When you're constantly available, you're perpetually fragmenting your attention. Your morning might start with a plan to work on that project that's been calling to you, but then the messages start rolling in. A colleague needs quick advice, a friend wants to vent about their problems, a family member needs a favor. Each seems small, manageable, but by afternoon, your own priorities remain untouched. This pattern repeats day after day. Your dreams, your projects, your personal development all take a back seat to everyone else's immediate demands. The Stoics believed that our time on earth is limited and that wasting it is the greatest tragedy. Epictetus taught that we should focus intensely on what is within our control, and that includes how we allocate our hours. When you allow constant availability to rule your life, you're surrendering control of your most valuable resource. You're letting others write your life story while you remain a supporting character in your own existence. The goals that matter most, the ones that could transform your life or bring you genuine fulfillment, remain perpetually on hold until one day you realize years have passed and you're no closer to achieving them, then when you started number 3, you'll attract takers instead of givers. Stoicism teaches us to observe patterns in human behavior and adjust our actions accordingly. Through the lens of Stoic wisdom, we understand that our actions send signals about what we'll tolerate, and what treatment we'll accept. Being always available sends a clear message. I'm here to serve your needs with no expectation of reciprocity. This message acts like a beacon, attracting a specific type of person, the chronic taker. These individuals have developed a fine-tuned radar for people with weak boundaries. They can spot someone who won't say no, who feels guilty about prioritizing themselves, who measures their worth by how much they can do for others. And once they've found such a person, they latch on with remarkable persistence. You'll notice a pattern in your relationships. The people who contact you most frequently are often those who need something. It's rarely just to check in, to celebrate your successes, or to offer their own support. Instead, it's always a problem they need solved, a task they need help with, an emotional burden they need to unload. Meanwhile, people who value balanced reciprocal relationships may actually avoid you. Why? Because your constant availability for everyone makes you appear to have no boundaries. And people with healthy boundaries are often uncomfortable with those who have none. They worry about becoming just another person taking from you, or they sense that a relationship with someone so scattered across so many demands won't have the depth and attention they're seeking. The Stoics, particularly Marcus Aurelius, warned against wasting our goodwill on those who won't appreciate or reciprocate it. This doesn't mean becoming cold or selfish. It means being strategic with your generosity, directing it toward those who respect it and who bring positive energy into your life. In return, when you're too available, you lose this discernment. Everyone gets equal access, regardless of whether they've earned it or whether the relationship enriches both parties. Number 4, your mental and physical health will deteriorate. The Stoic philosophers understood the deep connection between peace of mind and how we structure our lives. They taught that tranquility comes from living according to reason and virtue, not from constantly reacting to external demands. Modern science validates this ancient wisdom. Constant availability triggers chronic stress responses in your body. When you're perpetually on call, your nervous system never fully relaxes. You exist in a state of low-grade vigilance, always partially waiting for the next interruption, the next demand, the next crisis that needs your attention. This sustained activation of stress responses leads to measurable physical consequences. Elevated cortisol levels disrupt sleep quality. Your immune system weakens, making you more susceptible to illness. Your digestion suffers. Tension accumulates in your muscles, particularly in your neck, shoulders, and back. Chronic headaches become your companion, and your energy levels, which once seemed boundless, gradually diminish until fatigue becomes your default state. The mental toll is equally severe. Decision fatigue sets in when you're making countless small decisions throughout the day about whether to respond, when to help, what to prioritize. Your capacity for good judgment on important matters diminishes. Anxiety increases as your sense of control over your own life decreases. Resentment builds toward the very people you're trying to help, because deep down, you know the imbalance isn't sustainable yet. You feel trapped by the patterns you've created. The Stoics advocated for moderation and balance in all things. They recognized that we cannot serve others effectively if we've depleted ourselves. Epictetus taught that we must maintain our own well-being as a prerequisite for being useful to anyone else. When you sacrifice your health on the altar of constant availability, you're not being noble or virtuous. You're being foolish, violating the fundamental Stoic principle of living according to reason. Number 5, people will test and violate your boundaries repeatedly. Stoic philosophy teaches us that we train others how to treat us through what we accept and what we firmly reject. When you establish a pattern of constant availability with no clear boundaries, You're inadvertently teaching people that you have no limits. This creates a testing dynamic where people will push further and further to see what they can get away with. This boundary testing isn't always malicious, often it's unconscious. Human nature tends toward the path of least resistance. If someone knows you'll handle something they'd rather not do themselves, they'll naturally gravitate toward asking you. It starts small. Perhaps they ask for help slightly outside normal hours, and you accommodate. Then the requests come later, more frequently, and with less notice, they begin to assume your availability, rather than ask for it. What's particularly damaging is that once you've established this pattern, any attempt to set boundaries will be met with resistance. People become genuinely confused or even offended when you suddenly say no to requests you would have previously accepted. They've come to see your availability as a characteristic of who you are, not as a choice you make, and they feel entitled to it. The Stoics taught us that we must be consistent in our principles, that wavering invites chaos into our lives. When you've been inconsistent with boundaries, sometimes available, sometimes not, but without clear principles guiding when and why, you create confusion, both for yourself and others. People don't know when they can count on you, because there's no clear framework, and you don't know when to say yes or no, because you've never established criteria for making that decision. Reclaiming boundaries after a long period without them requires courage and consistency. The Stoic virtue of fortitude becomes essential. You must be prepared for pushback, for people questioning why you've changed, for some relationships to fall away, because they were based entirely on what you could provide. But this pruning, though painful, ultimately leads to healthier, more authentic connections. Number 6, you'll lose your sense of identity and purpose. The Stoics particularly, Marcus Aurelius, emphasized the importance of knowing yourself and living according to your own principles and values. Constant availability creates a scattered, diffused existence where you're perpetually responding to others' agendas rather than pursuing your own. This reactive mode of living gradually erodes your sense of self-identity. Isn't something we're born with, fully formed. It's constructed through the choices we make, the priorities we set, the boundaries we maintain, and the goals we pursue. When you're always available, these identity-forming activities get pushed aside. You become defined not by what you stand for or what you're building, but by your usefulness to others. This creates an existential crisis that many don't recognize until they're deep within it. You start to feel hollow, going through the motions of a busy life, but lacking any real sense of direction or purpose. The activities that once excited you, that made you feel like yourself, have fallen by the wayside. There's always something more urgent, someone who needs you, something that can't wait. Your own interests, exploration, and growth become luxuries you can never quite afford. The Stoic concept of the inner citadel, a core self that remains unchanged by external circumstances, becomes impossible to maintain when you have no boundaries. The walls of your citadel have gates that never close, and the constant traffic of others' needs tramples whatever you try to cultivate. Within, Epictetus taught that some things are within our control and some are not, and that wisdom lies in focusing on the former. But when you're constantly available, you surrender that control. You allow external demands to dictate your internal state, your schedule, your energy, and ultimately your life's trajectory. The path back to yourself requires creating protected time and space where you can reconnect with your own thoughts, desires, and ambitions. This isn't selfish, it's essential. Without a strong sense of self, you have nothing authentic to offer others. You become a hollow server going through motions rather than a whole person engaging in meaningful exchange. Number 7. You'll never develop your full potential. The Stoics believed in the concept of eudaimonia, human flourishing through the development of virtue and capability. But this development requires focused effort, time for deep work, and the space to fail, learn, and grow, none of which is possible when you're perpetually available for others. Think about the great achievements in any field. They all require Sustained, focused attention. A writer cannot produce meaningful work in 5-minute intervals between. Helping others, an athlete cannot develop excellence by constantly interrupting training to attend to others' needs. A business cannot be built by someone who's always putting their own projects second to everyone else's requests. When you're too available, you essentially guarantee you'll never reach your potential in any area that matters to you. Your energy gets distributed so broadly that it never accumulates the intensity needed for breakthrough, the depth of expertise that comes from immersive. Focus remains forever out of reach because you never immerse yourself in anything long enough to develop mastery. Moreover, constant availability prevents the kind of productive solitude that generates insight and innovation. The greatest thinkers throughout history, the Stoics, included valued periods of withdrawal and reflection. Marcus Aurelius wrote his meditations during moments of solitude away from the demands of empire. These quiet spaces allow for the integration of experience, the generation of new ideas, and the clarity of thought necessary for wise decision-making when every moment is filled with responding to others. There's no room for this crucial internal work. Your thoughts remain surface level, reactive and scattered. You're so busy addressing immediate tactical concerns that you never develop strategic vision for your own life. The opportunities that could transform your existence pass by unnoticed because you're too busy managing everyone else's small emergencies. Now let's examine the 4 Stoic strategies you can implement to break free from the trap of constant availability and reclaim your life strategy. Number 1, establish clear availability. Windows based on your priorities, following the Stoic principle of living intentionally according to your values. Create specific windows during which you're available to others and protect the remaining time for your own priorities. This isn't about being cold or unavailable, it's about being strategic and sustainable. Begin by identifying your own peak performance times. When do you do your best thinking, most creative work, or most important activities for many people? This is the morning hours. Guard these times zealously. Let people know that you're unreachable during certain hours and be consistent about it. You might set a rule that you check and respond to messages only at specific times, perhaps mid-morning, early afternoon and late afternoon, outside these windows, unless there's a genuine emergency you're engaged in. Your own priorities. This approach serves multiple purposes. It trains others to respect your time because they know when they can expect a response. It reduces the cognitive load of constant checking and responding, allowing you to engage more deeply with whatever you're doing. And it creates accountability for your own goals because you've committed specific time to them. The Stoics taught that we should have reasons for our actions based on principle, not just reaction when someone questions your boundaries. You can explain calmly and confidently that you found you're more effective and therefore more helpful when you can focus deeply on one thing at a time. Most reasonable people will understand and respect this strategy. Number 2, practice the Stoic pause before committing to anything. Epictetus taught that we should examine our impressions before acting on them. When someone makes a request of your time or energy, instead of immediately saying yes, practice the Stoic pause. This might be as simple as saying, "Let me check my schedule and get back to you," or "I need to think about whether I can do that justice, given my current commitments." This pause serves several vital functions. First, it prevents the reflexive yes that leads to overcommitment. Many people agree to things immediately out of a desire to please or a fear of disappointing others, and then regret it later. The pause creates space for reason to override emotion. Second, it signals to others that your time has value, that it's not freely available to anyone who asks, but must be considered against your other obligations. This alone increases how much people value your time. Third, it gives you the opportunity to evaluate whether this request aligns with your values and priorities. The Stoics emphasized living according to virtue and reason, not according to every passing demand during your pause. Ask yourself, will this move me toward my goals or away from them? Is this person someone who reciprocates or only takes? Is this something only I can do, or could the person solve it themselves? Saying yes to this means saying no to something more important. If the answers suggest you should decline, have the courage to do so clearly and without excessive justification. A simple, "I've considered it and I'm not able to take that on right now," is sufficient. You don't need to provide an elaborate excuse or justify your decision exhaustively. The more you practice this, the easier it becomes. Strategy number 3, identify your non-negotiables and defend them absolutely. Following the Stoic virtue of courage and commitment to principle, establish a set of non-negotiables in your life. These are the boundaries that you will not cross, the commitments to yourself that you will not break, regardless of who asks or how they react. These might include things like no work communications after 8 p.m. or on weekends. Sunday is reserved for family or personal restoration exercise or meditation time. Every morning is untouchable. 1 evening per week dedicated to personal development or hobbies, whatever aligns with your values and needs. The key is to establish these. Clearly communicate them when relevant and then defend them. Absolutely, when you treat these boundaries as negotiable. They become meaningless the first time you break your own rule because someone pressured you, or because it seemed easier in the moment. You've taught everyone that your boundaries don't really mean anything. The Stoics, particularly Marcus Aurelius, emphasized the importance of being like a rock against which waves crash. It remains unmoved, and the waters around it grow calm. This is how you must be with your non-negotiables, unwavering, until others accept them as simple facts about how you operate. You'll face testing. People will push against these new boundaries, especially if you've previously been completely available. They might express disappointment, frustration, or even anger. Stay calm, remain committed to your principles, and offer no extensive justification. Your time and well-being are not things you need to defend. They're inherent rights that you're simply choosing to exercise. Some people will adjust and respect your boundaries. These relationships will deepen and become more authentic. Others will fall away, revealing that they were interested only in what you could provide for them. And while this can be painful, it's ultimately healthy. Pruning away relationships that don't serve mutual growth. Strategy number 4. Cultivate Stoic self-sufficiency and selective generosity. The Stoics taught that we should rely primarily on ourselves and our own virtue for contentment, not on external validation or the approval that comes from constantly serving others. Simultaneously, they practiced strategic generosity, helping others in ways that promoted genuine growth rather than enabling dependence. To implement this strategy, begin by developing your own inner resources. Spend time in reflection, strengthening your principles, pursuing your own growth and interests. When your sense of worth comes from internal development rather than external usefulness, you become less susceptible to the manipulation that often accompanies requests for your time. Then practice selective generosity. Instead of saying yes to everyone, focus your helping on those who truly need it, who will use it well, and who demonstrate reciprocity or growth. Ask yourself, is helping this person right now actually helping them? Or am I enabling them to avoid developing their own capability? Sometimes the most compassionate response is to let someone struggle through a challenge that will strengthen them. Epictetus taught that difficulties strengthen the mind, as labor does the body. By always swooping in to rescue others from every difficulty, you may be depriving them of growth opportunities. Moreover, direct your generosity toward causes and people aligned with your values, rather than spreading yourself thinly across every request that comes your way. Channel your limited time and energy toward making a meaningful difference where it matters most. This focused approach accomplishes more good than scattered availability ever could. When you do help, do so fully and presently, because you've chosen it based on reason and values, not out of guilt or inability to say no. This makes your generosity more meaningful, both for you and the recipient. And it establishes a healthier dynamic where your help is a conscious gift rather than an expected obligation. In conclusion, according to Stoic wisdom, the path to a meaningful life requires boundaries, focus, and the courage to prioritize what truly matters. Being constantly available might seem generous, but it's actually a form of self-neglect that serves no one well. Not you, and ultimately not the people you're trying to help either. By establishing clear boundaries, defending your time, protecting your priorities, and practicing selective rather than indiscriminate generosity, you reclaim your life. You create space for your own flourishing, you build deeper, more authentic relationships. And paradoxically, you become more genuinely helpful because you're helping from a place of strength and choice rather than depletion and obligation. Remember the Stoic principle that you cannot pour from an empty cup. Your first responsibility is to maintain your own well-being, clarity of purpose, and strength of character. From that foundation, you can engage with others in ways that enrich both parties rather than depleting you. Start today. Create one boundary, one window of protected time, and defend it. See how it feels to reclaim even a small piece of your life. Then expand from there. Your transformation won't happen overnight, but with consistent application of these Stoic principles, you'll gradually shift from being constantly available to being strategically present. And that makes all the difference. We've reached the end of this journey, and I sincerely hope these Stoic insights will serve you well in reclaiming your time, energy, and sense of self. Don't forget that you are a crucial part of this channel, so if this video has resonated with you, challenged your thinking, or offered you a new perspective, give it a thumbs up so that more people can discover the transformative power of Stoic wisdom. And if you haven't already, don't forget to check out our ebook about Stoicism and how to apply it in your daily life. Subscribe for a regular dose of Stoic philosophy and practical wisdom for modern living.